Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's Policy and Oversight Board. My name's Councillor Lisa Homan. I'm the chair. Before we start the meeting, just a couple of housekeeping points. By participating in the meeting this evening, you are agreeing to be live streamed on the council's YouTube channel. So just like you to be aware of that, make a note of it. Could I ask officers, when we come to your reports, to introduce yourself, say your name and your department, and just a couple of sort of basic things about fire alarms. I don't think we're due a fire alarm test this evening, so if the fire alarm goes off, it probably is a fire. So please leave the meeting in an orderly fashion by the fire exit, which is behind me on my right. Officers will direct you as required to Riverside Gardens, which is the assembly point. And if you would like the facilities, they are on my left at the back. So that's the housekeeping points. I will now go to the agenda itself. And could I ask if we've got any apologies for absence? I think we've got Councillor Daly and Councillor Antonides. There are no others. Okay. Thank you very much. Could I ask if there are any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda this evening? No? Great. Thank you very much. So that will lead us to the minutes of the previous meetings. Has everybody looked at the minutes? Has anybody got anything they'd like to raise? Is everybody happy with the accuracy of the minutes? Yes, they're agreed? Agreed, great, thank you very much. Which leads us to the first substantive item on the agenda this evening, which is the Transformation Programmes Overview Report. So for those of you that were present at the previous meeting, you'll be aware that we looked at the Financial Services Peer Review. And within that, there were some mentions of transformation programs. So we're not just talking about transformation in terms of making savings, but also in terms of how we can transform our services to better serve our residents. We've already, in some regards, looked at some of those transformation programs here. So we can take digital, for example, but there's programs that are in different stages across the council. So I thought it would be really useful to have a look at all of those and make sure that we monitor what's going on as they develop. So on that note, we have various officers from departments, but I'd like to ask Councillor Ree to say a few words to introduce the report, and then I'll go to the various officers. So Councillor Ree, would you like to start?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to come here and discuss these important issues with you. So I think it's not going to be a surprise to anybody to hear that local government is short of funds and has been for a while now. In Hammersmith and Fulham, over the last 14 years, or the 14 years of the last government, we had our grant cut by 54% in real terms. And councils across the country are really struggling with the financial situation that they find themselves in, with increasing demands, but also constraints on resources. In Hammersmith and Fulham, we've always been pretty successful in terms of finding savings within our budget. So this administration has already found £138 million of wasteful spending we've been able to cut out of the budget without affecting frontline services. But these programmes that we're going to be talking about today are larger, council-wide, in most cases, transformation programmes that are going to save even larger amounts of money in the medium to long term. So the reason that we're presenting this paper is because earlier this year, we had a peer review from the LGA. It was a very positive review in terms of the feedback that we got from our fellow councillors and council officers. One of the recommendations that they had was that they were happy that we had these transformation programs going on, but they just wanted us to formalise them and perhaps do a little bit more reporting on how they were going. So I think this will be the first of perhaps many reports that we come here to present in terms of how these transformation programs are going forward and how they're changing the way that the council works. We're aware that there's probably not going to be large amounts of money flowing into local government in the next few years. Things like the fair funding review that's going on at the moment look like they're going to be taking They're going to be prioritising other areas in terms of council funding. That's something that we're lobbying to stop, but I've always been brought up to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So, but I think it's important anyway that anyone managing public money tries to make sure that they're managing every penny as well as possible. So this is something that we'd be doing whether we were facing funding shortfalls in the future or not. The final thing I wanted to say on this is that this transformational approach that we're taking is, I think, somewhat different to measures that other councils have taken. In lots of places, as budgets are cut, councils will salami slice department spending until you get to a point where actually teams aren't able to deliver the services that they're supposed to be doing. We don't think that's an efficient way to go about allocating resources. What we want to do is make sure that the council is running in the most effective, most efficient way that it possibly can. And that means tackling issues like our staffing. It means looking at the property portfolio that the council has. It means making sure that we're taking advantage of the latest technologies and using all of the data that the council has. And it means that within the departments, we're making sure that services are provided in the most efficient way. So I'm going to hand over now to James, who's going to provide a little bit more detail, and then I think we're going to go through the 4 programs that we have here. Sorry, the 5 programs that we have here, and we can hear a little more detail about those. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Reid. I haven't got too much more to add, to be honest with you. I think Councillor Reid's done a pretty good job of just talking through that. I just wanted to kind of emphasise that although we've got these 5 cross-cutting transformation programmes that colleagues will talk through in a minute, obviously we are looking at making savings from other areas too. So this is very much sort of complementing, kind of looking at kind of efficiency across the organisation. So it was just really to emphasise the point that these are 5 cross-cutting programmes, but we also do look to sort of drive savings out of all areas. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to Joe to start the talking through of each of the cross-cutting programmes, and Joe's going to start with the property programme.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, councillors. Can you all hear me? Yeah. I'm Joe Woodward, and I'm the Director of Planning and Property in the Place Department. So I'm here to talk you through the overview of the Corporate Property Transformation Programme. So just to give you a little bit of background then, we actually have a relatively small corporate property portfolio now. Numbers are quite large, but I'll talk you through the sorts of assets that we have remaining in the portfolio. I would say that, as with other councils, a lot of the marketable stock has already been sold off in previous years. Between 2006 and 14, for example, over about 40 assets were disposed of, half of them about residential. So some of the more lucrative valuable assets have already gone, but there are about 748 non-domestic assets remaining in the portfolio. Now, about half of those, about 45%, are general fund, and they include things like open spaces, parks, business units, leisure facilities. And it also includes, for example, 152 substations. So, when I say assets, I mean small assets, not just properties. We currently manage our portfolio of property assets in a hybrid way, and I mean by that, I mean that the ownership and responsibility is devolved down to the individual services who are directly involved with that asset. And then we just have a smaller central function which looks at compliance and asset management and FM. Now, a lot of councils have moved to a different model, which is a corporate landlord model, and we'll be exploring that through this transformation programme. And the corporate landlord model brings everything into the centre, into a strategic single corporate function. And as doing that, we would expect that you would be able to drive efficiencies, align the service budgets and the priorities for the assets with council priorities. So that's going to be looked at as part of this programme, and there may be other options in between that sort of corporate landlord approach as well. Just going back to our current assets, so the occupation levels are very high, they're over 90%, and we are generating income for the council from them. The majority of assets are subject to market rent, and they have regular rent reviews built into the leases. But there are a few existing concessions and restrictive covenants which we'll be exploring again through this transformation programme. The biggest issue that's driving the timing of the programme is that as the civic campus is now nearing completion and occupation, this gives us the opportunity to look at all the wider operational estate, including this building, to see, what we can dispose of, what we can reuse for other purposes, as we'll all be moving into the civic campus. So that's a sort of general overview. So the objectives of the programme are three main objectives. One is around operational effectiveness, reducing our operating costs and making sure we have a commercial return on our assets. Second one is to make sure we're aligning them to operational need, and particularly future operational need, bearing in mind we're changing some of the way we deliver services. And then finally, most importantly, is to achieve some corporate savings through this comprehensive review and making sure we can transform our assets and our operating models. It's a very high level of governance. It's governed by the Corporate Property Board, and that's comprised of the Chief Executive, the Exec Directors of Place and Finance and Corporate Resources, and then senior leaders from key council services, as well as myself and the property team. So that Corporate Property Board meets monthly, so it's really driving pace into this programme. So key work streams, as I said before, one of the key things is to just look immediately at the office accommodation needs in light of our move to the civic campus and the rationalisation of stock. All of this transformation needs to be in the context of a corporate property strategy and an asset management strategy. So we're taking a strategic view of what assets we need and how best to use them, rather than simply picking off ones to dispose of. We want to make sure we're absolutely right in if we want to dispose of anything. We will be looking at our policy and approach to rent concessions. There may be an argument for some rent concessions, but we need to be commercial with the assets we keep. We'll be reviewing the operating model, as I've said previously, and we'll also be ensuring we can deliver the planned capital maintenance programme, because at the moment some of these assets have some legacy of maintenance issues that we need to make sure the assets we keep are being maintained properly. So that's an overview. The anticipated benefits will be confirmed as the programme gets into gear.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure there'll be some questions on that in a bit, but I think if we hear about the different programmes and then we'll come to the questions. So is it Maya? Is Maya going to go next? Oh, you're going to go next, Joanna. Okay.
Good evening, Jo McCormick. I cover procurement, commercial and digital, and I'm going to speak about the digitalisation programme at this point. So you've heard a lot as a committee already about some of our work around digital. The digitalisation programme is focused on improving our services across the council through the use of digitalisation approaches, including automation and new technologies, including generative artificial intelligence. We've got a number of programme streams we're progressing. One of those is REAP, and Mia's going to speak in detail about REAP because it's a much bigger programme in its own right. But alongside that, we're working up work streams around smart and connected city development, which explores our kind of economic, social and environmental benefits of investing in connective technologies and the Internet of Things to ensure we can achieve cash flow savings and shift to a kind of data-driven proactive service delivery using technology to aid us. Another of the work streams is around in-depth service digitalisation, looking at our back office functions and how we can be much more efficient using technology to aid us. A further stream is around our BI savings opportunities and using the strength of BI to understand where those opportunities lie and to give us those efficiency benefits. And finally, we have our BAU working for digital services itself, which looks at how we review all of our contracts, our licensing, all of the day-to-day work, and how we can consolidate and improve the commercial deals that we secure when we're buying those kind of systems, applications and so forth, so that they're working as best they can. The governance for the programme is through a digitalisation working group, which brings together REAP, BI, digital services, and then senior representatives from across the council. And the benefits we're focusing on here are the opportunity for cashable savings, the improvement of resident services, and the new ways of working that underpin the use of technology. That's kind of our summary headline on the digitalisation piece. I'll pass through to Mia now on the REAP programme.
Thank you, Jo. I'm Mia Peters. I'm the Assistant Director of the Resident Experience and Access Programme. And the objective of our programme really is, at very headline level, is to create a single digital pathway for all resident contact. That doesn't mean that we're pushing everyone through a digital channel. What it does mean is that our advisors, people in face-to-face environments and everything, or residents that are self-serving through our online estate can make sure that they see the same version of the truth. So somebody could phone up one day, the next day they could go and do a digital form, and then they could come into one of our face-to-face environments and we would be able to see all those interactions. And so it's really what that's going to result in is that we have a culture that is putting the resident needs first. It's not about putting the needs of the organisation first. It's not designed around the silos that we have in the council, but it's designed around what users need to get done, not about the ways that we currently do it or around the specific technology. And what we're hoping is that, you know, enhanced digital services that are very straightforward and convenient and everything will be the service of choice. And what we're also making sure is that we design in where people can't use digital or don't want to use digital, that there's a way that they can interact with us. But for the majority of people who are digitally articulate, we're hoping that they will use our digital self-serve channels. And it really gives us, you know, sort of an opportunity to make sure that we've got consistency in the quality of customer service experience across all channels and across the council. And one of the things that we do regularly, we've just had one today, is our digital accessibility group. We meet every month and sometimes face-to-face. Today was online. We talk to residents. It's a group of disabled and non-disabled residents. And we also have, in between that, we have user research sessions where we co-produce. One of the great things that we've done this year is that we've co-produced a digital form centre of excellence, because what we found is that we've got so many digital forms. We've got 150 at the moment, and we aim to have, you know, double or even more of that in the future. We knew that we didn't have the results to test all of those. So what we did is we said, well, we don't just want to be compliant with WCAG 2.2, but we want to make sure that we're much better than that, and that we co-produce based on, you know, a resident's lived experience. So they've done some fantastic work with us in the first 6 months of the year, and now what we're doing is we're rolling out user guides and manuals that are going to socialise with staff who actually develop forms technically, and also staff that commission forms. So that's just one example. And that we've got a governance process. We have strategic boards that meets up on a monthly basis. And then we also have an operational board, which isn't, we've decided to do that in an agile way. So we actually have 3 different meetings that make up an operational board, and we have sprint planning. And so we're trying to be agile and responsive to the projects and to residents' needs. And so they happen on a fortnightly or a weekly basis. And I suppose the last thing I want to say is just that, you know, as we're getting more efficient in the way that we deal with things, we've brought in some new technology which will allow us to re-engineer some of our processes. Some of the processes that have been around for a long time aren't particularly efficient, that we are bringing in automation, we're bringing in artificial intelligence, we're bringing in corporate customer relationship management system that will have this single view of the resident, and also corporate case management system. So we'll be able to collapse some of the case management systems that we have across the organisation at the moment. So I'll leave it there. That's the headlines. Thank you.
Joanna, did you want to come back in?
So I'm on to the revenue raising next.
Okay.
So the other programme I was going to speak to this evening, the revenue raising transformation programme. For this programme, we're focusing on ruthless financial efficiency and supporting delivery of our frontline services through maximisation of income. And the programme aims here are to increase our revenue generation and to explore new opportunities across the organisation and to support the organisation through training and development in thinking about how you can approach developing services in different ways. From a governance point of view, we have a commercial board with senior representatives across the organisation who hold income generating budgets. And we have, for any of the companies around our commercial activity, their own governance and reports back through to Cabinet on the company side of business. The focus here is around looking at income to cover costs, our fees and charges, debt recovery, income from our use of space or assets and so forth. And also looking to ensure we've got really good business cases around how we deliver any of our commercial activity, particularly if we're using a company to do so through partnership with other entities. And that's the headline on that one. I'm going to pass over to the next.
Mary, I think, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Mary Lamont. I'm the Assistant Director for People and Talent at Hammersmith and Fulham. I'm going to talk to you about the workforce programme. So the Workforce Transformation Programme for People and Talent is about reshaping the workforce to better meet changes in our operating environment with improved efficiency and enhanced operations across recruitment, workforce planning and learning and development. It's intended to deliver significant improvement to services alongside financial benefits to meet future organisational demands through transformational activity. During 2024 and 25, the reshaping of the corporate redesign resulted in the council reducing from 6 departments to 3, and these changes formed the start of a wider redesign of the next tier and beyond. A key component of the programme will be the proposed establishment of a joint venture for the delivery of agency and interim staffing services across council departments. The key benefit in the joint venture will be realising a significant savings through reduction in management overheads. The programme will redesign the existing people and talent operating model to meet future organisational demands, which will involve streamlining recruitment processes, aligning roles and capabilities with strategic priorities, and embedding behaviours and values to support transformation. To do this, we will consider all of our policies and practices to ensure that they're fit for purpose, that they remain compliant, but at the same time, they're not cumbersome and unwieldy. We're also reviewing our current organisational management approach to strengthen financial oversight by introducing an establishment control model, moving away from an organisation management model. This proposed model will support more robust workforce planning. It will improve corporate visibility and reinforce accountability while continuing to value the principles of trust and autonomy where appropriate. Finally, the programme also aims to centralise our learning and development to support, again, workforce planning and succession, and also realising efficiencies through a structured corporate learning needs analysis model. Will allow the council to better align training initiatives across organisational priorities, aligned with the launch of the new online appraisal functionality, which we discussed here previously. Will enhance the tracking of return on investment and respond more flexibly to emerging needs while ensuring an equitable approach across the organisation. Governance will be via our Resources Management Board, and benefits include income generation, cost savings, efficiency and enhanced productivity through new ways of working. Again, also making best use of new technology and automation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I think that leaves Sarah as the last but not least.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Bright. I'm the Director of Commissioning, Transformation and Partnerships for the People's Department. Many of you will know that we became a People's Department last May, and I've just lost my notes. Excellent. So yes, we became a People's Department last year, last May. That brought together children's, adult social care and public health. And so what I'm here to talk to you about is the adult social care part of this and the transformation plan relating to that part of the department. When we became a new leadership across people's and adult social care, we undertook an extensive sort of listening activity, engaging with staff, our partners, our residents, analysing our data and the performance information that we had available to really get a sense of where everything was at as a new leadership team. We also, at the same time, had our CQC inspection, timely or otherwise, which ran sort of concurrently to all of that work that we were undertaking. That essentially kicked off May that same year and concluded in March in the following year, so 25 this year, when we got the final report. We learned a lot about ourselves in that process and found out new things about ourselves, which aligned very much the findings of the CQC inspection, and that there were a number of areas that we thought that we could do differently, improve upon, and support residents better in different ways to achieve better outcomes. There's also a lot of change happening elsewhere across our system. Health is experiencing a lot of changes too, and that presents us with an opportunity to work far better with our health partners and to align alongside them with what they're doing around their new 10-year health plan to improve services together and make better use of resources across the system. And actually, my post was created as part of that to build capacity within our department to be able to support that work and work more extensively with our health system. Our transformation plan takes on a whole system approach from early intervention and prevention through to acute and complex care and support to ensure that we're able to provide the right support to residents at the right time and alongside our approach to independent living, working alongside our system partners. We began this work earlier this year on the transformation plan, and the work streams are well underway now with an established cross-council board to oversee the programmes of work. The four main work streams are strategy and finance, which I'm looking after with James, which is very much about our capacity to transform, making sure that we've got the right resources to enable us to undertake that transformation journey, ensuring that we've got the right strategic approaches that will inform everything that we do. So we'll look at the opportunities for all of the services that we need to commission and commission them differently, think about how we will use that to inform our service offer and the models of operation. For example, we're undertaking a placement sufficiency review at the moment, which has been an extensive piece of work of going out and really mapping and understanding and meeting service users, looking at all of our supported living accommodation, for example, and going out there to understand what we've actually got on the ground and talking to people and finding out about what that means to them and whether or not we've got local insufficient provision in the borough and what we could do differently with that and learn from that experience so that we can then inform our recommissioning approach. The second area is workforce. Links very nicely to what Mary Lamont was talking about. We are looking at how we organise our workforce to get the best out of them and ensure that we've got the right capacity in the right parts of our department to best meet the needs of residents, and we have a number of reorganisations currently underway as part of that. The third area is our practice. So we're really developing our strength-based practices and ensuring that we have the right processes and panels and infrastructure in place to support that practice so that we get the right outcomes. And then the fourth area is our performance, developing our performance and quality assurance frameworks to ensure that we're measuring the right outcomes, we've got the right data and performance information that's available to managers and heads of service that they can best support the workforce in doing their jobs to the best of their ability.
Well, there's an awful lot of information there. I'm sure the members of the committee have got lots of questions. Just a couple of comments from me. I think there have various items of work that you've referred to, for example, REAP and the digitalisation programme, have some of the work that Mary's been doing in People and Talent has been to us at this board in different reports, but it does tie in very nicely with this sort of overall strategic views. It may well be that some of the items that haven't come to this board might get a few more questions this evening. And I also think it's very clear that, again, the ones that I've mentioned, that these have been ongoing for a while, but we've obviously got some very new, and Sarah, I think this is like at the beginning of the journey for your transformation programme, whereas some of them are a little bit further down the road. And in some ways, you've got a tough job because we know that adult social care is one of our biggest budget areas, and probably one of the toughest ones to kind of keep renewing. My other point I think to make is it's really, in my view, fantastic that all of this work is going on and that we're being proactive, because certainly in terms of some of the transformation work that some other councils have done, it's been forced upon them. I'm thinking Birmingham, I'm thinking Croydon, I'm thinking places like that where these sort of changes have been forced upon them because of absolute dire budget situations. Whereas I think we're always, credit to our finance team, our cabinet member, and across the departments, we're always thinking about how we can do things better. But I think it's really important for us as members to have an oversight of that. So I'm really pleased that we brought this evening. Having said that, I'm going to now open it up to the committee and see who would like to ask some questions. Who would like to? Councillor Trey.
Hello, thank you very much. They've been really fascinating reports. Thank you. Joe, if I can just ask you to talk to the sort of the way this is a new way of looking at what you're doing, because using the word transformation to me talks of using new techniques, new ways of looking at it. And I wonder if you could just enlighten us a little bit what that means.
Yeah, obviously we manage a property portfolio and have done for a long time. And I think it's a really good question. I suppose a lot of it is making sure we are focusing on the right priorities in terms of optimizing the estate, efficiencies. I think there's been perhaps some properties have been used in a certain way for a long time, and no one's really thought back, well, actually, is that the right way now? So I think there's a changing mindset that I think, and the culture change we need to have, not just in property, but across all services that are involved with property and assets. I think the second thing is around how we manage those assets in terms of, at the moment, they're devolved out to the services. So there's no real overall corporate control and eye on what's going on and a strategic steer. So we don't have a corporate property strategy or asset management strategy that's up to date. So there's been no strategic direction set on how we can maximise our property to meet the council objectives and the services to the residents. I think it's quite a lot about culture change, how we organise ourselves, as well as just being far more commercially minded about our assets we have.
Thank you.
Anything else on that particular point? No. On that, I kind of remember historically, and I don't know what the situation is now, but we do have quite a lot of sort of commercial properties, shop fronts, under sort of council blocks. And they have in the past been a bit of a difficulty. So that will be part of this strategy. So how are those being incorporated to make sure we maximise any income that we can get from those? And indeed, it looks like that, income maximisation is part of this project. And it looks like some of that's already happened. So maybe you could talk about what's already happened and what we're doing going forward around that particular point.
I would say we're quite early in the project for that. We're still understanding where all the assets are and what they're being used for, who's managing them, and what the lease arrangements are, what the lease review. We're still in that mode at the moment in terms of the assets, particularly the HRA non-domestic assets.
Coming under, they are coming under your.
That's part of it.
Part of the corporate.
Right to mention that. So as Joe mentioned, there's a general fund HRA split, and so it's very much about kind of understanding the assets within the kind of context of the fund that they're part of, and how we kind of the best way to utilise that, how we maximise the income. Obviously, Joe did mention also the 90% utilisation. So there is we've got quite high utilisation, but there are things like sort of concessions and what do we strategically do about that? And I think that's bringing all of this really into a more corporate focus through the corporate property board that actually looks at kind of what is the best route for the organisation going forward.
Councillor Perez.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report and the updates on the different work streams. So my question is, what systems do we have in place to ensure quality of service throughout this transformation process?
So is that across all of them? Or?
Yes.
So each of them within the report, each of the programs has the governance within it, and really that is where the kind of the quality and the performance is monitored. So, for example, with the adult social care one, that as Sarah was talking through, that has where are we? Paragraph. If we look at where is it? Where's the finance? Paragraph 76 onwards. You've got there the various work streams within the adult social care one. So strategy and finance, workforce practice, performance and improvement. So really kind of the quality and the performance monitoring is through the governance, and each one has a specific governance framework that is kind of sort of like tailored to the program, the characteristics, etc. So that's how we cover them for each one.
Anything else? Councillor Rowbottom.
Thank you very much. Had a couple of questions. The first was on the property brief. This is probably to Joe. I just wanted to check that it was plugged into the industrial strategy and some of the demand for particular types of property, student accommodation, lab space, although I recognise that's not uniformly available on housing for kind of entrepreneurs. Just wanted to check it was aligned with that work.
Yeah, very much so, because obviously we have a range of priorities we want to meet through our assets, and actually supporting the industrial strategy programme, providing affordable workspace, which we do at the moment in some of our industrial units. All of that is very much tied into how can we deliver some of the industrial strategy objectives through our property portfolio. So just to reassure you, we work very closely. I'm in the same service area as Matt Rumble and the industrial strategy teams.
Great, perfect. That's brilliant. And then one more, if I may, Councillor Hayman, which was I noted to go back to sort of some of the fair, the kind of the fair funding incentives underneath this and the impact. I noted that Kensington and Chelsea have responded by proposing closing family hubs. I think they've signed that off, and cutting their council tax support scheme, which seems amazingly short-sighted. And I just wanted to check our position on these programmes that we've had great success on in light of our own need to adapt to funding cuts.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowbottom. It's a very good question. I think family hubs actually are a great example of some of the work that we're doing in the property transformation programme. Right, this is bringing a range of different services that people rely on together under one roof out in the community. So it's easier for people to access, and it means that we don't need to have separate buildings for all sorts of different things that are going on. Frankly, I think the family hubs are an excellent example and something that we should be carrying on with and expanding where we can. So no, we certainly won't be getting rid of those as part of this work or as part of any of our work in the future. On council tax support scheme, I think as somebody said over the summer, we're a council that says council tax low through prudent financial management. I think that's absolutely right. We are a low tax council, and that means that who pays tax is just as important as how much is paid. We know that council tax is a hugely regressive tax because of the way that it's structured, and council tax support schemes really allow us to make it a bit more progressive, making sure that the most vulnerable people in society end up paying less. Those who can pay less will pay less. In Hammersmith and Fulham, we're one of the few councils in London, indeed one of the few councils in the country, that has maintained the full council tax support scheme. One of, I think, 3 in London at the moment, although it sounds like not for much longer. 3 in London that still maintain a 0 minimum for those really least able to pay. We've expanded that in terms of this administration. We've added foster carers and care leavers to this list. They don't pay any council tax at all. And next year, veterans as well will receive a 25% discount on their council tax, something that we're extremely proud of in order to thank them for the sacrifice that they've made. I think you're absolutely right to say that's a short-sighted move to try and cut council tax support. What RBKC seem to be proposing is a tax on the most vulnerable people, a tax increase on those least able to pay. That's not something that we're going to be doing. We've committed to keeping the council tax support scheme, and that's something that we'll go forward with.
Any other questions? Councillor Fonzie?
Thank you, Chair. The first question is for Joe, and thank you all for your report. Retransformation, redisposal of the corporate assets. What is changing in terms of KPIs thinking with regards to that process? I understand if you haven't gotten that far, but could you speak to that?
We haven't got into that level of detail, but obviously the things that are driving it in terms of KPIs are getting the basics right. Have we got the right rent and lease arrangements for our properties currently, let alone what we want to do with them in the future? Are we clear about our rent policy? Are we clear about what we support in terms of concession rents as well? So there's a whole sort of financial set of KPIs around ensuring commercial efficiency. And then there's the efficiency of using the asset right as well, and actually sweating some of those assets. So obviously things like our advert sites or our substation sites, all those sorts of things. There are some areas we will target to begin with in terms of how are we maximising the commercial opportunities from that, and that will be another set of KPIs. So yeah, as the programme develops, we'll be looking across the board in terms of how we can measure the effectiveness of the property strategy.
I think it's probably something about the asset condition as well. So obviously we'll be doing a lot about asset condition surveys, so looking at the assets that are kind of expensive to kind of, you know, they need considerable upkeep, etc. And so that will kind of help to inform decision making going forward as well.
Yeah, we've just completed a full set of the stock conditions, which is producing, as you can imagine, some challenges in terms of investment required, and we need to be clear about, well, where do we want to target that investment?
Thank you. I've got two more questions, Chair, if that's all right. The next one is to you, Mia. So you mentioned digital accessibility in the digital accessibility group. I was just wondering, as part of the transformation, is how this is promoted being looked into? Because I don't know, what is the uptake like?
And it's a cross-section of residents that are disabled and non-disabled. Just recently, we've brought more residents in, and we have a strategy over the next sort of 3 to 4 months that we want to bring a few more residents in. But obviously there's a cap, because otherwise if we bring too many residents in, we'll find that we'll get some that won't say anything and some that will talk lots. So we're trying to cap it at around sort of like 15 or 20 or so. And we also have user research sessions that we conduct. So we'll say to the people that are part of the digital accessibility group, for instance, what's just happened last week is the digital strategy. We're currently refreshing that, and we're going out and talking to lots of people. So some of those residents have come to have a one-to-one session where they talk about their lived experience around using digital and the devices they use, and how, you know, so we're really doing like really lovely in-depth sessions, and we're getting loads of insight from those. And then that very much complements the co-production that happens.
Superb, thank you very much. And you also mentioned multiple case management systems being merged. That is a welcome change. Out of interest, how many case management systems are currently being used across the organisation?
I don't know if Joe knows the answer to that one.
I think we have about 8 main case management systems, but there are lots of smaller ones as well. And I think we're targeting the smaller ones because some of the bigger ones are very specific to very technical processes.
No, thank you very much.
Can I just coming back on the digital stuff, just to say that we have had members of the disability
group,
the disability group come to this committee in the past and talk about their involvement and how they've helped shape and how they've looked at it from the point of view of residents. But I was going to actually pick up on a question that somebody said about forms earlier and testing forms. Having had a dreadful recent personal experience with a totally different organisation, a commercial organisation that decided to change the way that you buy things from them. It was obvious they had not fully test run their new app. And so not only myself, but other people that use it have sort of said, well, they obviously haven't tested it and we're still guinea pigs. So I was slightly concerned when you said we haven't got capacity to test everything. So I'm just wondering how you do pick up when something perhaps has not worked in quite the way that we would have liked it to have done.
I think we've got several mechanisms to do that. You know, first of all, it's the co-production and the co-design of principles of good, accessible, user-focused forms that we do right up front, so that we've got a user manual, we've got a checklist. We make sure that when people are developing or commissioning forms that they use that. And then we've also got analytics where we can see where people have dropped off. So maybe people have got to a certain stage in a form and they've dropped off. And if we can see patterns, then we can be proactive about doing those. And our business as usual, we've got an estate of about 150 digital forms at the moment, and I have a team who are constantly working on those and revising them and looking and seeing what the experience is and coming back and just refining, not only based on user feedback, but also based on best practice and based on, you know, us learning from other local authorities and also from the best in class in resident experience, not only in the public sector, but also across commercial organisations.
Is that, we have had before at this board, and we are looking at it again next time, I think, and that's AI. Is that the sort of thing that perhaps AI can pick out when people are dropping off, for example, and where the difficulty point is, and so we can actually learn? Is that the sort of thing that AI can potentially help us with? We can ask about that next time because it is on the agenda, but yeah.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Afonso's point about digital accessibility. I think it's a really good question. Firstly, because so many of the services that we access as consumers have moved online. You know, whether that's checking your bank account, whether it's checking your energy bills, your phone bill, all of this sort of thing. So much of that has now moved online that we want to make sure that as many residents as possible are able to take advantage of those services, whether or not the council offers them. Also, you know, the happy coincidence of that is that by making people better able to access these things, they can access council services in a cheaper way as well. So, you know, digital accessibility is really something that we're very keen to promote. I hope I'm not spilling the beans too much to say that we'll be launching our digital inclusion strategy next month. And you're welcome to come along to the launch of that and have a closer look at what we're doing.
Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of sort of broader questions. In terms of, obviously, these are a sort of set of different projects, but is there an overarching narrative in the sense that I get some themes that are running through them, but grateful if you could sort of, I suppose it would come alive a bit if we had some way of understanding the what the ambition is across all of this. Clearly, it's about transformation. It sounds like some of it is about looking strategically by bringing things sort of close to the centre a bit so that you can look in a strategic way, but interested in your comments on those. Also, second question really about sort of in reimagining the sort of corporate estate and also talking to things like workforce, I'd be interested in understanding what the key pinch point, sort of across all of this, there is a sort of theme of workforce, I guess, particularly adult social care is, you know, a good example here. And interested in what some of the key pinch points are in terms of workforce. Clearly, training and retaining the right people, and adult social care being a very good example of that, is key. But I wondered what other themes there are about workforce elsewhere in these projects.
I mean, I'll go first on the first question, Councillor Vaughan. And I think it's a really good question in terms of the strap line across all of these. And I think that there are obviously some commonalities, and those really are about modernising, future-proofing, a corporate approach, more corporate oversight, efficiency and money saving as well. So I think that in this modern era, there will be the need to kind of continue to manage our cost base effectively and be as efficient as possible is going to be, it's never going to go away. So I think there is just a need to always trying to be the most efficient organisation that we can. So I think those are probably the sort of like I think the commonalities that effectively work through each and every one of those programs. And I think that's really an ethos that we're trying to kind of just instill in the organisation more generally as well. So I hope that answers the question to start with. But I think it's something we'll think about in terms of strap lines that kind of are consistent across all of them. It's a good question.
And if I can just add to that as well. So absolutely, all of the programmes all will impact on workforce in one way or the other. And just following on from what James has just said around efficiencies, and we talk a lot about the new ways of working. We know that, you know, automation, digitalisation is a big thing. So it's about enhancing skills, but it's also about, it's really important. We talked about retention and recruitment and how important and how key that is. Particularly in adult social care, but there are other very hard to fill areas that we need to be fit for purpose for. So some of that's about talent management, developing our own, but very important to us. And we did touch upon this at the last meeting around performance, managing performance and performance improvement. So, you know, in all of this, in everything we do, that's absolutely cross-cutting.
Just to come back in on that, we're sort of going back to sort of the adult social care area that we're looking at. We learned a lot from you, I think, in a previous report, and you've actually said a lot of what perhaps adult social care will now be looking at. I'm just wondering, is there anything else from any other departments that have already done some transformation that we've actually done that adult social care are looking to learn from, I suppose is the question.
Thank you very much. I think that's the beauty of actually becoming a people's department, is that we can learn quite well across children's and adults, because we've experienced some similar issues in the children's part as well. You know, there are some areas where that is notoriously difficult to recruit to. So things like occupational therapy it's really, really hard to get people in. It's just not the pipeline of people there ready and waiting to take those roles up. We also have quite an extensive reliance on agency work as well to fill the workforce. So that's also something that we're looking at and working very closely with Mary as with the talent management piece and also the recruitment and retention opportunities. How do we make sure that we can attract the right people so that we can move away from that reliance on agency? So those are key features of our approach, absolutely. And the grow your own as well, because we've got newly qualified social workers, lots of support around supporting them to develop and grow, and we want to keep them, especially where they are excellent for our residents.
You've now reminded me about a question I wrote down and I didn't ask, which is, I just wonder if you could talk more about the sort of joint venture agency that you referred to, Mary, because I think we all know the agency staffing issue is a cost. So how do we envisage that working, and what sort of timescales do you think we might be trying to work towards?
Thank you. So thank you for asking that question, because it really does link into some of what we've just talked about, and how we can better support the organisation in terms of the recruitment needs and the retention going forward. The joint venture is initially where we will, as opposed to having a framework with a commercial enterprise, we'll have the framework with the joint venture, and significantly what that will mean is it will mean a reduction in our outsourced vendor fees straight away. So the markup that we're paying will be reduced, but it won't just do that. What we're committed to doing, and this is really exciting, but we'll be able to much better prioritise our local employment, our youth opportunities, the return to work pathways aligned to upstream activities. So there's so much more that this will bring us through this partnership arrangement, in addition to the cost savings and the efficiencies.
I'm assuming that it will probably help improve the sort of consistent quality in the sort of agency provision we're getting as well.
It's a consistent quality at the moment. We have the outsourced arrangement. Bringing this joint venture along will give us a much better support mechanism for our managers. Essentially, we're looking to reduce the administrative burden on our managers as well. So another positive in terms of doing the joint venture arrangement.
Yeah, just to say, it's a proven kind of approach as well. So a few other boroughs have done it.
Yeah.
It's really smart. I think a really smart thing to do. What we're doing, I think, and it gives us control in terms of just managing the market. And as Mary says, just in terms of ways into work for people, there's a number of benefits beyond just the financial.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Perez.
Thank you. One final question from me. So, Sarah, you mentioned how at the beginning of this process you carried out a listening exercise, and I also know the different initiatives that we have in terms of co-production and with the RIPS project as well, the digital accessibility group as well. But are there other systems in place to involve our residents to make sure that they're shaping this transformation process in the different departments? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So co-production for us in adults and children's is an ongoing conversation, actually, and there has been extensive co-production already undertaken over the last few years, frankly. So we know a lot, and what we're really focusing on right now is turning that into, well, what does that mean in terms of what we do differently, and starting to turn that into action and implementation. But it's ongoing. So, for example, we will have involvement of residents in our commissioning processes, for example, and mobilisation. And we just try and make sure that there's lots of opportunities at every stage of that journey to involve residents and engage them in things that we are doing. So that it's never a once and done, and it's a cyclical. It comes back round. We need to go back and reevaluate and think whether we're still doing it right or could we still be doing it better. So it's an ongoing dialogue.
Councillor Train.
One last question that I'm thinking of is how we look at the impact of this transformation, because I'm worried about that we might prioritise, for example, finance, we might prioritise the workforce, but we might prioritise looking at savings. What I'm worried about is the impact, for example, on the third sector, the charity sector, if we might, make savings in the corporate sphere, how it might impact charities, and also just how we make sure that our impact doesn't affect. I'm thinking of neurodiversity and the vulnerable people. And that includes the workforce and the third sector. Sorry, I know it sounds vague, but I'm worried about that we focus too much on savings and it becomes so tight that we don't have a kind of empathy element.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the purpose of this is improving services, not cutting services. Right? We've so far managed to cut £138 million without getting rid of any of the frontline services that we deliver. In fact, we've gone further in a number of areas with things like free home care, things like the law enforcement teams. You don't need me to go through the list. But all of the work that we do is co-produced. So we're making sure that people are still able to access services and that they work in the best possible way for the people who use them.
I was going to mention that I can see that co-production has gone to a couple of the packs, including, I think, children's services and adults recently. So obviously the packs are also kind of tracking this, and we've got co-production on the agenda for our next meeting as well, I believe. Has anybody got any other questions? There's one thing I was going to ask. We're talking about savings, but one of the things that we are also looking on here is sort of income generation. And I think, is there a corporate commercial board or something? I wonder, Joanna, can you maybe tell us a bit about that? I mean, I think this has been an ongoing thing. So have we had any big successes, and what's our kind of optimism for the future on that, I think?
Yes, so we do have a corporate commercial board and representatives from across the organisation who hold income budgets and associated targets come and speak about delivery against those targets, and we work collaboratively, doing deep dives on any areas where there's a need for improvement, and we also look at new opportunities. Some successes that we've seen recently. Last year, you see from the report, we got approximately £1 million additional income as a result of some of that work over and above the existing targets. And some of that was around things like digital advertising, enhancing the way that we make use of our assets from a registrar's point of view, looking at how we make better use of some of our assets more generally, and also around some of our bookings and greater use of our bookings in the kind of leisure sphere, just to throw out a few examples. And so we've continued to build on that. And I also mentioned in the report some of the forthcoming areas we're looking into in more depth. So we have already a track record of doing things around electrical vehicle charging, and we're now into the new cycle, it goes around cyclically, looking at those concessions and where that might go next. And we're doing some more work around our CCTV and joint work with other boroughs there as examples.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody got any final questions or comments before we conclude this report? No? Great, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I know we've sort of focused on some areas more than others, and some of these will be coming back to us. There's sort of a bit of an ongoing monitoring, but I think it's important for either the PAC chairs, if you've heard things in your areas this evening, or certainly I will be keeping an eye on things that might want to come back here at some point so that we can just see how things are progressing. And it's always useful to know what our residents feel about it, so sort of resident feedback as we're going along that journey as well. So I'm not sure that there's any information we particularly need back from anybody right now, but this will be a bit of an ongoing process in terms of us watching what's going on, and seeing how well we're doing and delivery and any efficiencies we happen to make from it. So thank you so much, everybody, for your time this evening. Very interesting that we're doing all of this. Thank you. So we'll just have a quick pause for a minute before we go on to the next item on the agenda. So I'll let anybody that doesn't need to be here, please feel free to leave and enjoy the rest of your evening. My thing on. The next item we've got on the agenda is the Disability Confident Leader, which we have just become the status. You can explain to us, Mary. But I saw this coming forward and I thought, given that we've talked a lot about disability access and we've talked a lot about our workforce and how we look after people, I thought it'd be really good to just explore how we've managed to get here, because I think this is something that's really positive for us to have achieved. So over to you, Mary, to say a little bit more about it.
Thank you. Thank you. We were delighted to receive this accreditation. And just to go into it, it's Disability Confident Leader, which is the highest of the accreditations from Disability Confident. We're one of just 4 boroughs across London to have actually got that accreditation. So we are really proud. Disability Confident Leader recognition is achieving the highest Disability Confident accreditation and reflects our commitment to inclusive employment and support. We foster an accessible and supportive environment for colleagues, customers and community members, residents. We protectively promoting disability inclusion across networks inspires others to follow best practice. And the recognition represents core values and ongoing efforts to build an inclusive organisational culture. So in 2022, we achieved Disability Confident Employer, which was level 2. And again, this recognises our ongoing commitment to disability inclusion, that this year we've achieved a Disability Confident Leader. This is through a commitment to our inclusive culture, strategic partnerships, and we've talked a lot about co-production, specifically around co-production, and recognition and impact. And you'll see in the report there was a quote from the assessor to say, we have clearly been on an amazing journey to support not only colleagues and candidates, but the borough's service users. You are partnering intelligently and using the co-production models to hugely good effect. You should be very proud of what has been a serious commitment. So why does this matter to us? So it matters because being recognised as a disability confident leader highlights our commitment to inclusion and excellence in the workplace. We exceed best practices with guaranteed interviews, workplace adjustments and targeted recruitment for disabled people. We have a supportive workplace initiative through digital tools, wellbeing programs and manager training that actively supports a diverse and empowered workforce. And we recognise, and our recognition reflects our shared belief that diversity strengthens our organisation and inspires continual leadership. So just a little bit about how we've done this in terms of embedding inclusion. So I've mentioned already about guaranteed interviews and pre-interview adjustments, which demonstrate commitment to accessible recruitment. We work in partnership with Microlink, who provide assessments, equipment, ergonomic aids, and access to work support to enable workplace inclusion. And we have mandatory workshops for our managers, which cover a range of subjects, including autism, dementia, Alzheimer's, and that's to help foster understanding and provide support. And we have launched over the last year or so tools such as Read and Write. We're piloting our wellbeing passport to ensure that neurodiverse and disabled employees receive ongoing support without disclosure pressures. We have our work experience programme, which provides placements for residents, care experienced people and SEND learners to bridge education and employment. We support we run supported internship programs which support young adults with learning disabilities through work placements and employability qualifications. We have our Earn While You Learn initiative, which offers accessible apprenticeships with tailored adjustments. We have our career development programs such as Get Ahead, Mentor Connect, Emerging Leaders, which focuses on internal growth and personalised mentoring opportunities. We have leadership development. We ran an initiative called Be a Leader, Build a Leader, which was aimed at partnering with local residents, young residents. And we have inclusive learning and training through our Learning Zone, which provides training on disability, neurodiversity, and inclusive customer service. We also offer wellbeing programs, which include 24/7 employee assistance, occupational health services. We have mental health champions, and we run a number of awareness events throughout the course of the year, which are always well attended and often led by our networks. So community and collaboration, we have inclusive organisational culture guided by lived experience and inclusive practices. We have our disability equity network, which is active in terms of supporting us to promote the social model of disability and influencing policy through lived experience. We have our tools for inclusion, some of which I've mentioned already. We're really proud of our resident-led groups that we've spoken at length about earlier today. We work in collaborations with partnerships and engagement. We work with organisations such as the Shore Plus, the Job Centre Plus. We have also very close working arrangements with H&F Works. We have our community events, which I'm hoping you would have attended. I've seen some of you at those. Our SEND-focused education, which is at the Macbeth Centre, offering courses supporting SEND learners towards employment and higher education progression. And then, of course, sharing best practice through webinars, blogs, and our events and community approaches. I could go on, but I won't. I'll stop there. There's much more that we could talk about, but I'll ask if there are any questions on the back of the report and
I'm sure there will be. I've got one sort of like really overarching question. Do we ask the government to give us this accreditation or assess us, or do they, and what, if we do ask them, what do they come and look at? What do they want to see? Because we've got all of these fantastic programs, but what is it, how do they actually measure that to say, yes, you've got this leader status?
Yeah, so it's externally assessed, not through the government, but it is externally assessed through Disability Confident. There is a comprehensive form that has to be filled in with the supporting evidence that, you know, we're not just saying this, we're actually doing it. What we did as well in terms of getting our accreditation was we shared that with our Disability Equity Network for input from colleagues within that group as well. So, but yeah, that it's evidenced through, it is a form filling exercise, but that is evidenced and verified by people that will want to see the evidence that supports it.
And there was a lot to put on that form, by the way.
It was a very long form.
Yes.
It was a very long form, yes.
Okay, has anybody got any questions? Yeah, Councillor Perez.
Thank you very much. Big congratulations for achieving the Disability Confident Leader accreditation. That's really good. It's great to hear as well that only, did you say 4 boroughs?
Yes.
Have it,
yes.
and we're one of them.
Yes.
Fantastic. It's really
4
good.
or 5. I think it's 5. We're one of 5. But I just have to confirm that.
Excellent.
Yes.
That's really good. So in terms of making sure that we have got that commitment to this accreditation and that we're following good practice, what needs to be in place, and also, do they come and do a monitoring assessment?
Yeah.
Every year or every 2 years? How does it work?
No, there will be further assessments. I haven't got the information in terms of that time frame. But what I would add is, you know, absolutely, there is always more to do. There is a lot that we're doing. There's a lot to be proud of, but there is always more to do, and that's why we are delighted to work really closely with the Disability Equity Network and our resident groups, as we've heard earlier today, to make sure that we don't just want to have that accreditation. We want to be better than that. We want to do more than that. Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I mean, more of a comment. I mean, I think that there's been a sort of, obviously, a series of steps that have got us here, I guess. And I think what was said in the summary at the start of this report from the external validator probably sort of illustrates that, really, which is, I think, the commitment to the Disability Commission that came up with a lot of ideas throughout stuff like co-production. I think that has been, and we've seen in these meetings and elsewhere, we've actually taken the opportunity to embed that through actually having teams that are sort of spreading co-production or promoting co-production across the council. I think it's a good example of taking that sort of strategy and that drive and spreading it across the council to lead to this result. It wouldn't have happened had that commitment not been there and those steps not been taken. So I think certainly for this purpose, Mary, we'd thank you for the work that you and your team have been doing. But clearly, it's been a great sort of strategic. I mean, it's a sort of thing, particularly for this committee, strategic commitment across everything that is done. And I think the fact that this is now recognised across, a whole sort of series of work and a series of departments shows that it's actually been embedded widespread across the council. It's not just a sort of one-off programme that sits in some silo. So I think that Mary and team, but also a lot of people across the council can be rightfully proud of what's been achieved here. And obviously the importance of this is that we are doing things like the council is co-producing with residents, so it is working with residents, not doing things to them, and having their input into the policies that the council makes and how we are delivering services and other things across the borough.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Train.
Again, sorry, it's a bit more of a comment. Congratulations. This is amazing to hear. I think what came across to me is not just a sort of reduction of bias, it's the positivity that really came across in all of those things, and that we're actually increasing. I'd almost like the measurement of what the benefits are through attracting a huge variety of people into our workforce, and I think that really came across that there's benefits to this variance.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks. I mean, I think for me, it's about it's good and it's great, and we need to keep doing it, but it just demonstrates how, from sort of like a Disabled People's Commission, and then building a strategy across the council, and how, and I think, councillors, policy and accountability committees, not so much this board because it's sort of newer, but it just goes to show how we can actually shape how things look in a few years' time. And from the transformation programmes that we saw earlier, I'm hoping by the PACs and this board and all the co-production that we do, we are shaping the services in the future. So, we're in the similar place on other services going forward. So I think it's a good bit of work. And I was going to say, how long do we keep it for? Do they have to come and monitor us every year? Or
I have to come back to you in terms of the reassessment.
I think that's the only question. And I think the other thing, I mean, this might be particularly about disability, but it opens inclusion up in so many other ways, because a lot of things that we do in relation to disability opens doors in terms of other sort of exclusion, inclusion issues. So I think that's why it's also really important.
Yes.
So if you could come back on just how long we keep it for and what we need to do to keep it, or how often they just come back and check up, that would be really helpful. But I think that's probably the only action. And obviously we'll look forward to having reports back in the future on that. So thank you very much, Mary. Thank you. That leads me to the final item on the agenda, which is actually a summary of the Policy and Accountability Committee sort of, not really reports, but what you guys have all been doing on your committees. Does anybody want to say anything about the work that they've been doing particularly? No? Okay. Just a couple of comments. I mentioned earlier that both children's and adults seem to have looked at co-production. We will be, I think when we get to the items for the next meeting, we're going to have an update on co-production, which has come up so many times this evening in everything that we've talked about. And as sort of board members who've been on the board for a while know that we have looked at this a couple of times, and that we have sort of had updates. And I think one of the recommendations was for the policy and accountability committees to look at it in terms of their areas of work as well. So it's very nice to see that that's come up. The other thing that I picked up out of looking at the work programmes is I think a couple of the PACs have got drugs crime strategy on their agenda. So that's something which you might want to talk to your co-chairs about. I can't remember who it is, because you both got it on there for November. It was something we looked at bringing here at some point as well. So we perhaps need to have a conversation about where that goes. happy for one of the packs to do it. So that's kind of my comments. The other thing to say is I notice on the, it's got such a long title, your pack, Councillor Vaughan. The economy, arts, sports, public realm, and yeah, that one. I notice you have got active wellbeing strategy, which kind of leads me a little bit to one of the items that we've got on the agenda for our next meeting, because we've got strategies. So I'm really pleased, and I've seen it come up across the packs. Different strategies have gone to various packs. So I did ask Matt Sells to go through what strategies had been to packs and perhaps some of the strategies that have not been looked at, because as we're saying, it's fantastic that we've got all these strategies in place, but are they actually delivering on what we put in place? As Councillor Vaughan picked out on the disability stuff, it's obviously delivering. So we want to make sure that all of the strategies we've got in place are delivering. So we will be having a look and seeing what may be not going to the packs that would be very useful to come here, which is what's on the agenda for next time. Councillor Vaughan, did you want to say something about your active wellbeing strategy?
I want to say two things. One is the active wellbeing strategy, which I think used to have another name, we have considered before, and I think this is probably the final iteration of the strategy. So that was just to say that. So it's
right.
so
Yeah, good.
The second thing was I was delighted to see in the preparation for adulthood report that was on the Health, Children and Education Policy Committee that there seems to be a 1-year supported internship for young people with EHCPs that has hopefully come about as a result of some of that work. So yeah, I was very good to see that team is working with children's services to develop those things, because one of the things about preparation for adulthood was very much that, which is young people not being sort of thrown off at the end of facing a cliff edge, but in fact, if they've got these opportunities, that is exactly what we would expect that team to be doing.
Yeah. Councillor Perez.
Yes, and just to echo what you said as well, yes, it's really positive to see the adult, they have an adult social care policy accountability committee in July, officers giving an update on what in relation to co-production. So we had that recommendation here to understand more about how co-production is being embedded in a different department. So it was really positive, definitely, to have an update and to hear from specific examples of the work that has been carried out. Very positive.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on the report on the packs? Is that report noted?
Noted.
Okay, thank you. So that just leaves me to the agenda items for the next meeting, which I have now lost. Which we have the adoption of AI and governance update, which I think we've already talked about AI here, but this is something that's just so fast moving that it's important to keep monitoring where we're going with that. And I think I asked a couple of questions about AI, so we're having an update on that. Co-production across the council, again, we've had it at some of the packs, but it's just consistently embedding that in. So we'll have an update on that. Strategy monitoring, which I've just referred to. So there may be, when we've been through the list, there may be some strategies that it would be worth having a look at here to make sure they are doing the jobs that they are supposed to be doing. And then another update from the PACS work programme to see what you guys have been doing. So that is the agenda for the next meeting. And what is the date of the meeting, David? I've forgotten, 24th of November. So that will be the date of the next meeting. Unless anybody's got anything else, could I thank everybody for their participation this evening?